Hey, Katarina.
Hi, Shiva. Hi, Les.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Did we have any additional people sign up late yesterday or this morning? Or are we still at 5?
No, we are currently at 8.
Well, good.
And I see 2 actually already joined. So thank you for joining.
Jerry Johnson, how are you, sir?
Doing very well. Les, how you doing?
Oh, I'm hanging in there.
Yeah. I don't think Tom's going to join. He got another meeting at the exact same time. But I told him this probably be recorded, so
Okay.
make sure he gets it.
He told me he doesn't believe in backups.
Yeah, right.
I told him I don't think that's the best strategy, but hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Les, Pat, Shiva, Katarina, and Joe's here.
There you go.
Good morning.
Yeah, people funneling in here. We're doing.
Do you still want to give a couple of minutes less, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, let's give it a few more minutes since we had
Sure. Absolutely.
8 people register and looks like we got 3 on so far. So Jerry and Joe, if you'll give us a couple of minutes, just bear with us and we'll get started here shortly.
Yeah, it's all good. No hurry.
I feel like I failed. I should have had a fun video to play while we're waiting. Next time for sure.
You'll have to keep that. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. A little filler.
That or we could just play the Jeopardy music.
If we're doing game shows, I would we can do the old Family Feud. We can hit the top 10 or whatever it is in categories.
Well, it looks like Ted joined us. Good morning, Ted. Vinu, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
All right. Hey, so well, why don't I go ahead and kick us off, and before I pass it over to the team at HYCU, wanted to thank everyone for joining this morning. I'm not going to give you the 5S pitch because looking at the folks on here, some of you are already 5S customers and the others know me and I've already given you the pitch, so I'll spare you. That way we can kind of get right to the meat of the presentation. But before I hand it over, I did just want to add that 5S is really excited about the new partnership that we have with HYCU. And the main reason why is just it aligns so perfectly with our strategy and kind of the core tenets of our business, and that's around simplified architecture and removing complexity in the data center. That's one of the big reasons that we've partnered with Nutanix so heavily. And now HYCU just builds on that because it's simplistic and secure backup technology that integrates very well with Nutanix. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the HYCU team and let them kind of drive from here. We would like to make this interactive. And so if you have questions, feel free to stop us at any time and ask a question, or if you want to post a question in the chat, we can do it that way as well and make sure that we get answered. Hopefully at the end, we'll have time for a little demo, but after the presentation today, I'll be following up with everyone. And if anyone wants to schedule a deeper dive with us and the HYCU team, I'd absolutely love the opportunity to set that up and kind of take you through the product at a deeper level and talk specifically about how it could benefit your organizations. So with that, I will pass it over to the HYCU team.
Thank you, Les. Hello all, my name is Shiva Raja. I'm the Technical Solutions Architect at HYCU. Along with me, I do have Joe Salva and Patrick Slevin, who are my colleagues, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions or concerns that you have about our solution. Again, as Les mentioned, this session is geared for you. We're hoping this session to be extremely interactive. I personally don't really tend to stick with my slides. I'm more of a conversational guy myself. So again, please feel free to stop me at any given point in time, and I'd be more than happy to answer those questions. That being said, just doing a quick audio and video check. So I hope you're able to see my screen, and I hope you're able to hear me clearly. Right, Les?
Sure, we're good. Yeah, we can see you and hear you great.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. All right. So just to start with, HYCU, a quick introduction about ourselves. We are basically based out of, we're headquartered at Boston, and we actually have a very strong background with regards to data protection and data monitoring solutions. We actually spun up from a company known as Concrete Software. Now, the thing is, we basically used to create, backup software for several blue chip companies that have been a part of this Gartner's, Magic Quadrant. But we basically decided to, come up with our own software solution instead of, creating these backup solutions or outsourcing these backup solutions for blue chip companies. And with that being said, we decided to partner with Nutanix because we realized that they are the next gen solution for virtualization and for an enterprise cloud solution. They were the first of their kind when it came to coming up with this hyperconversion for structure instead of having a bloated 3-tier architecture where you need to have like separate virtualization, networking, and data storage tiers. So we basically realized that is the future, and we were the first purpose-built data protection solution introduced for Nutanix. And from that point forward, we started to support VMware, physical servers, and we also have extended our support towards the cloud, where we support Google Cloud and Azure Cloud platforms, and Nutanix GCP or Google Cloud and Azure are strategic partners. Now, one of the key differentiators about our solution, apart from our the features and functionalities that we offer for your Nutanix lit data center, is our Net Promoter Score. We are well known for our proactive customer service, where we ensure that customer satisfaction always comes, that is the highest priority. And we just don't track our NPS score purely based on customer support. We track our NPS score from the start to finish. Basically, it starts from the first call to our first demo, to our proof of concept, to our procurement process and customer support, and help with all those maintenance and upgrades. So we've done a real hard work in earning the score, and we are the highest. Our NPS score is the highest when it comes to the overarching considerations compared to any other backup vendor in the market today. So with that being said, let's just take a quick trip, or a quick overview of what backup solutions are available in the market today. So we basically start with these typical 3-tier architecture backup solutions. I'm basically talking about Veeam or Commvault or NetBackup. These backup solutions are basically designed to protect your physical boxes, protect your virtual machines running on VMware in a typical 3-tier architecture. And their deployment in itself is way too complex. You need to install multiple servers, backup servers, media servers, or data movers, or repository servers. And you need to install agents on every one of these guest VMs. So the entire deployment, maintenance, upgrade process can be, a huge task. and that's what we classify as a typical legacy backup vendor. And they barely, leverage the underlying platform for an efficient backup solution. I'm actually talking about Nutanix. I'll get into more details about, how these legacy backup vendors don't even, scratch the surface when it comes to truly utilizing the underlying Nutanix platform. And then we have these expensive backup appliances. I'm actually talking about the likes of Rubrik and Cohesity, where although they claim to be next gen, one of the biggest problem with these vendors are like they're extremely expensive, right? I mean, the amount of price that you have to pay for these, backup appliances, they could be actually, they're more expensive than your production environment. And that totally breaks the purpose. And there is no question about repurposing your existing storage hardware to store your backups. You literally have to rip and replace your existing infrastructure for these expensive appliances. And then you have these cloud washed solutions where, backup solutions that claim to be cloud ready, but they simply move their existing problems, their on-prem problems, to the cloud infrastructure. And they're nowhere near to being, cloud ready, but they still claim themselves to be a cloud native solution. And finally, it comes down to us, where we are a truly purpose-built data protection solution for every platform that we support. And today we'll be talking about how we are purpose-built for a Nutanix platform. So with that being said, let me just take a quick overview of what do I mean by a legacy architecture, right? Why is it so important when it comes to protecting your Nutanix, running AHV or ESX, or even non-Nutanix ESX, or even physical boxes like Windows and Linux? Now, this is basically a very basic example of a multi, like a heterogeneous data center. Now, if you have a solution like Veeam that needs to back up all of these resources, you basically start with a backup server. You need to install all these agents running on these VMs. You need to deploy multiple proxy servers based on the number of hypervisor clusters that you have. And then you need to have the appropriate repository servers. And if you have any cloud strategy, like doing backups to the cloud, you need to have the appropriate cloud proxy servers deployed on your desired cloud vendor. And in addition to that, if you want to have more monitoring and management capabilities, you need to have these enterprise backup management with separate licensing. You need to have a separate reporting server with separate licensing and compute requirements. I mean, if you just take a look at this particular diagram, you can see that the size of my backup infrastructure is almost similar to the size of my production environment. Like, is it really worth it? I mean, it's so painful to manage. And trust me, when I say this, I've done this before. I've managed net backup. I've managed backup exec during my days as a data storage administrator and a backup administrator. And this is a painful endeavor. And in addition to that, when it comes to maintenance and upgrades, this is basically going to take forever, because you're talking about, upgrading your entire infrastructure, which means you need to schedule downtimes during the weekends, and you basically have to ensure that these upgrades are completed within that specified amount of time. Because if that doesn't happen, then your backups are going to be out of compliance. And in addition to that, especially when it comes to Veeam, they run on Windows, meaning that you need to have additional Windows licenses. And from a security standpoint, they're not that great. And let's face it, guys, when it comes to the architecture of all these legacy backup vendors, they're more than 10 years old. And that is being optimistic. Like vendors like NetBackup, they're almost like 25, 30 years old. And this architecture has never been, refreshed. They basically try to introduce, new features on top of the same architecture, which means it's bloated, it's inefficient. And on top of it, these solutions don't come cheap. Every year when you're renewing for your backup solution, it's going to be an expensive ordeal, and they're not cost efficient at all. And this is where HYCU comes into the picture, because to start with, we are an extremely simple, straightforward backup solution where we can easily be deployed with minimal maintenance and instant upgrades. And we basically run as a virtual appliance within your within a CentOS operating system, which is security hardened at every level, and every release of our solution is basically ensuring that we are upgraded to the latest patch level to ensure that you don't have any of those security concerns. And we are modular in nature, meaning that we actually have the ability to not just cover your entire data center. We also have the ability to spread across multiple data centers and also cover your cloud infrastructure as well. And all of the capabilities, not just with regards to data protection, but also monitoring or user management, like all of those overarching backup management is basically offered in one unified experience, meaning that you don't have to deploy multiple solutions in a piecemeal fashion. And obviously, I wouldn't be talking to you if our solution wasn't cost efficient. I mean, from a licensing standpoint, or from an infrastructure standpoint, from the reusability standpoint, our solution is far more cost efficient than any of our competitors. And last but not the least, we are a purpose-built native solution to Nutanix. We can integrate perfectly with your AHV environment, where we utilize each and every bit of your Nutanix's functionality to provide you, high performance, impact-free backups of your AHV, your ESX environment. We also support all of your volume groups. If you have any clustered environments within your AHV or your ESX running on Nutanix, we will be able to support them in a impact-free manner. And we are the only vendor to support that today. And if you have any questions about Nutanix files, we will be able to support Nutanix files as well. And I do have a separate section on that, but again, we actually have the ability to cover all of your Nutanix-led features in your Nutanix-led data center. So any questions, guys, till this point? I know I've been doing a lot of talking.
All good.
All right, cool. Now, the second point that I'd like to talk about is our application-centric focus. Now, the first thing that I'd like to start with is, like, when you deploy HYCU, we also have the ability to automatically discover all of your applications. I'm talking about Microsoft SQL, Exchange, Oracle, SAP HANA, Active Directory, and all of these applications will be protected in an application-consistent manner with no agents or plugins. And when it comes to recovery, we also offer granular database level recovery of your Microsoft SQL or Exchange or Oracle, and we actually have the ability to do these granular recovery in a point-in-time fashion. And if you have any custom applications, you don't have to worry about that. We can actually protect them in an application-consistent manner as well. We have a detailed pre-post scripting framework where if you have a customized application and if you have the required set of steps or you can provide us those required set of steps for those pre-post scripting, we can actually help you creating those scripts, and we can actually help you creating an application consistent backup of your customized apps. And in addition to that, our recovery is extremely fast. Now, if you take our competitors, right, when they say that they support AHV, they only make use of Nutanix snapshots to protect your AHV environment. But we are the only ones in the market where we not only make use of Nutanix snapshots for AHV and ESX for backups, but we also make use of those snapshots for restores, right? And these snapshots can be used to not just recover your individual files or folders, but we can also make use of these snapshots to recover your individual applications, like individual databases. So your recovery is going to be extremely fast and secure. Now, in addition to that, we also support robo backups or like complementary robo enabled backups. Now, for instance, if you have any remote office, branch office, or not even that, if you're making use of Nutanix's replication using async DR or asynchronous replication, HYCU actually has the ability to leverage your replicated VMs to do a backup from a replicated copy. What this does is it basically ensures that your primary VMs are backed up along with your replication in an impact-free manner. And we can ultimately cut the overall bandwidth utilization by 50% because you're just using your network bandwidth for your Nutanix replication and not for your backups, because your backups is basically being done at the destination from your replicated copies. And the best part about this whole solution is even though HYCU is doing a backup from your replicated copy, it could still recover the data to your source VMs, be it files or folders or applications or the entire virtual machine itself. And the recovery in itself can be instantaneous if you have the snapshots retention greater than a specific time or greater than 1, because we still make use of the localized snapshots when it comes to recovery. So you don't even have to go about doing the recovery from your destination to your source if you have the required snapshots. And by using this overall solution, we can actually cut the overall management by 50%, because at the end of the day, we are truly making use of your Nutanix platform's replication to do these backups. So again, if you're making use of your async DR, and if you'd like to make sure that your backups piggyback on your replication, you can actually think about HYCU and see how we can help you there. Now, this is the part where I actually wanted to talk about Nutanix files. Now, I do understand that there are some some of you who are actually considering Nutanix files. Now, if you're considering Nutanix files, one of the things that you should think about is how are you going to protect your Nutanix files environment, because Nutanix files is nothing but like it's a NAS, it's a data storage solution that provides NAS NFS or CIFS shares. Now, these shares can be extremely huge. They can have an extremely dense directory structure with millions of files and folders. And protecting these shares can be a challenge of its own if you're not doing it right. And HYCU is the only solution in the market today that not only is the first solution that was started to support that started to support Nutanix files, but we are the only solution in the market today that is the most stable backup solution for all of your Nutanix file shares. The reason why I say that is because we have gone through a huge amount of testing with regards to scalability, with regards to stability, and we've had a lot of communication with the Nutanix engineering team to ensure that our solution is the best in the market. And we've come a long way with regards to that. So to start with, we are 100% agentless when it comes to backing up your Nutanix file environments, and we make use of your Nutanix change file tracking API. So think about that, right? When it comes to protecting your Nutanix file shares that is like more than 10 or 20 terabytes, doing an incremental backup of that share can be extremely challenging if you're not using the Nutanix's change file tracking API, because those incremental backups will take up forever and those backups are going to fail. But with Nutanix's change file tracking API, your incremental backups can be completed within a snap of a finger, because the Nutanix's API keeps track of all of those changed files, and HYCU can intelligently make use of those API to ensure that your incrementals are extremely fast, meaning that you can have more stringent RPOs to protect your Nutanix file data. And again, you won't have any performance impact on your Nutanix file servers, and we are an extremely scalable solution. So if you have multiple Nutanix file Nutanix file clusters, or if you have multiple shares with an extremely dense directory structure, I'm talking about millions of files and folders, we still have the ability to scale across all of these millions of files and folders, because it's not just the way we deploy across your Nutanix file clusters, it's also about the way we write the backups, the way we discover your file shares, and the way we do the backups of your Nutanix file shares to the appropriate target. And our recoveries are extremely fast as well, because as I mentioned before, we still make use of your snapshots to do an extremely fast recovery. And we also have the ability to recover from any backup target, and we can recover those individual files or folders, or we can do a batch recovery of multiple files and folders. And again, you won't notice any of those performance penalties or performance issues. So any questions about this whole Nutanix files section?
Not that in particular, but I would like to know, we can talk about it later. You
Sure.
mentioned the 100% agentless backup.
Mhm.
How does that, how does communication work? Is it just a WMI query, or what kind of, how are you talking to the
Sure. So
agents?
I can give you a high level answer, but yes, this is a very deep, that's a very deep dive discussion. But on a high level, it depends on the source, right? So when it comes to Nutanix files, we make use of your Nutanix's v3 REST APIs. When it comes to AHV or ESX running on your Nutanix, we again make use of your Nutanix's v3 APIs. When it comes to applications, it totally depends. For instance, if you're having Microsoft SQL, we make use of Microsoft's VDI-based backup methodology, and we make use of the WinRM calls using PowerShell. Again, it's done in an agentless fashion. When it comes to Microsoft Exchange, we make use of the Microsoft snapshotting technology. And when it comes to, let's say, Oracle, we make use of RMAN-based integration. So it depends on the source, but yes. So for instance, we basically support physical backups of our Windows physical machines, right? And those physical Windows servers are backed up using the VSS snapshotting, using the VSS writer. But again, we basically do it in an agentless fashion. We don't deploy any agents, even in a remote fashion, on your physical boxes. We basically make use of the WinRM using PowerShell. So
Okay.
does that answer?
That makes sense. Yeah. From our standpoint, mainly we would initially be looking at possibly the Nutanix, the
Sure.
AHV, and we are looking at Nutanix files, implementing that in the. I'm not sure when, but it's probably going to happen in the next quarter. First
Absolutely.
quarter, probably.
Sure. Please get in touch with us. We'll provide you the contact information. We'll be more than happy to talk to you in detail about, how the whole deployment works and,
Okay.
All right. And in addition to that, one of the cool things, and this is where things even get more interesting, because HYCU is one of those few solutions where we integrate with Nutanix objects. Now, Nutanix objects has been rolled into Nutanix Mine as well. So we were the first solution to be paired with Nutanix Mine. This was followed by Veeam, but we are very different from Veeam when it comes to this whole Nutanix Mine integration. Now, even before I go ahead with Nutanix Mine, have you heard of Nutanix Mine at all, or any of you, or? I guess not. Okay, so maybe let me just take a step back. So Nutanix Mine is a secondary storage offering from Nutanix, where they basically treat Nutanix Mine as a storage dense cluster that has the ability to store all of your backups, and it is basically paired with Veeam and HYCU. Now, HYCU has a unique positioning when it comes to Nutanix Mine, because we not only make use of your Nutanix primary, like the way I mentioned about the way we back up your Nutanix files or AHV and all that, but we also make use of your underlying Nutanix Mine platform for a more efficient backup. And this is how we do that. We are extremely easy to manage on your Nutanix Mine, because we can be installed instantaneously, and we can also be integrated with your Nutanix Prism user interface. And the whole concept of modular scalability is perfect in this story, because when it comes to Nutanix Mine, you can actually pay as you need and you can grow as you need. And the entire deployment in itself is so lightweight, because when it comes to HYCU, you just need one virtual appliance that can be deployed on your Nutanix Mine appliance, as opposed to Veeam, where you need to have multiple virtual machines deployed on your Nutanix Mine appliance. And obviously, we make use of the underlying Nutanix platform for high performance, cost-efficient backup storage, especially with Nutanix objects being released with Nutanix Mine v3. We are the only solution today who can do regular backups of all of your AHV or VMware workloads to your Nutanix objects. And as I mentioned before, it's extremely lightweight. And this is where the key differentiator comes into the picture, the ability to do backups to worm-enabled backup targets to protect yourself from ransomware attacks. So Nutanix Mine our Nutanix objects supports this worm capability, the write once, read anywhere, where you actually, write once, read multiple times. And this concept is basically about backup immutability, where once a backup is written to your worm storage, those backups will not be modified, or they will not be deleted, or they will not be locked up by any ransomware or malware, or even a malicious deletion attempts. And they will only be deleted based on the retention time specified within your Nutanix object cluster. And we also support auto tiering to the object storage as well. So expanding more on this backup immutability, right now, HYCU is one of those solutions where we have actually helped a couple of customers from ransomware attacks because of the following features. Number one, we extensively make use of your Nutanix snapshots for backup and for recovery purposes. And these snapshots inherently are immutable in nature. And in addition to that, we also have the ability to achieve backup immutability on your destination. So if you're making use of Nutanix objects, then we actually are the only vendor in the market today that has the ability to do regular backups to your Nutanix objects with this worm feature turned on. And our solution is totally air-gapped. What I mean by that is your backups are encrypted from source to destination. We support in-transit and at-rest encryption. And we also have the ability to support network segmentation. So if you want to have separate network paths from your source to destination, you can actually configure those individual network paths, and your backups are totally segmented or siloed from your production environment. And we also have a detailed multi-tenancy and self-service capability. So you can actually define detailed RBAC roles and resource ownership to ensure that only the right set of users have access to the right set of data. So you can totally, secure and fortify your data access and data security to ensure that there is no malicious deletion, or there's protection from ransomware attacks or malware attacks. Like, we can actually provide you a 100% backup security from all ends. And last but not the least, cross-cloud mobility, right? We support Nutanix clusters, and this is because of the way we do backups to the cloud infrastructure. Now, one of the key things about HYCU is we are 100% backup target agnostic. We can do backups to any backup target in addition to Nutanix Mind. Like, we can do backups to a NAS or a SAN target. I'm sorry, when I say SAN, I'm referring to iSCSI. And we also have the ability to do these backups to cloud-based storage, such as Azure or Google Cloud or AWS. Now, when it comes to doing backups to the cloud, we do this in an agentless fashion, meaning that you don't have to have any additional data movers or any additional installs on your cloud infrastructure. And based on this ability to do these backups to the cloud, we actually have the ability to support Nutanix clusters, where we can move your VMs from your on-prem to your AWS or Azure Nutanix clusters in a seamless fashion. So Nutanix clusters was first introduced on AWS, and I believe they support Azure, like, it's been more than 2 months now, I think. And we actually have the ability to support both of those infrastructures with absolutely zero problems. So I believe I was informed that one of you is like testing Nutanix clusters. By all means, check our solution out, because we can actually provide you a seamless mobility between your on-prem Nutanix nodes to your cloud Nutanix clusters. And in addition to that, we also have our own DR capability, where we can actually move your VMs to your Azure or your Google Cloud platform. This can also be used as a tertiary feature, where you can actually seamlessly move your VMs to your Google Cloud or to your Azure platform, where you can fail these VMs over, or you can fail those VMs back onto your on-prem infrastructure. And again, there's a lot of feature and functionality provided here, where we can move these VMs in an application consistent manner. I believe there's a question on the chat. Supports Nutanix clusters? Yes, Jerry, we do support Nutanix clusters.
I got a question.
Yes, Ed.
a couple slides back about the worm functionality.
Yes.
And forgive me if you said it. But so is worm something that the target needs to support, or is that a function of software within HYCU, or is it both? Or so what will we need, kind of to support that functionality?
So worm is something that the target needs to support today, right? Worm inherently is a hardware-based feature. It's not a software-based feature at the end of the day, because no matter what we do, if the hardware doesn't support, okay, let me put it this way. We do offer a software-based worm for our backups. What I mean by that is once a backup is created for a VM, there is no way that you can do anything to compromise the integrity of that backup, right? For instance, let's say if I have taken a backup of a VM that has 1 million files, I don't have the ability to selectively delete files within that backup, right? That is totally preserved, but it's only preserved from a software perspective. From a hardware perspective, like deleting those backups, you need that feature to be enabled on your hardware. And today we support worm capability on object storage with regards to S3. So any S3 backup target that can support bucket level worm capability, we should be able to do backups to that target. So for instance, we can support AWS S3's worm functionality. We can support Nutanix objects worm functionality. And right now we are also testing on Cloudian's S3 worm functionality. Does that answer your question, Ted?
Yep. Are there any, I know it's not your job to kind of sell hardware devices, but do you have any, could you give us an example of one, like a local hardware device that would support that functionality?
So so the first thing that comes to mind is Nutanix Mind. So just give me a little bit background about your environment, Ted. Are you running a Nutanix environment, or is it?
We are a brand new Nutanix customer, so we don't have the hardware today. So today we're a VMware customer running on Cisco UCS, and so we're using Veeam to back up our virtual environment, and we're using like Synology NAS devices as the target today, which is not necessarily the greatest solution.
But they're cheap. Yep.
So obviously that's not what we want to continue to do. So we're trying to figure out what we might want to purchase in the future, as a backup target. And I guess maybe a further question is, in the past, kind of best practices would say you would not back up a SAN to the SAN. You know what I mean? You would go to a different device. So, I assume that's still the recommendation, that you wouldn't back up data on a Nutanix to the Nutanix, but again, possibly that's changed with the way it's architected. But anyway, we're just looking for recommendations on.
So our highly recommended data protection, like the on-prem backup solution, is Nutanix Mind, right? Especially if you're very interested in worm, we can actually provide not just the recommendations, we can actually work with the Nutanix team to give you a recommended, sizing and all that information. But our number one recommendation for worm and cost-efficient or high-performance backups would be Nutanix Mind paired with HYCU. We can definitely work with you on that, Jason. I'm sure Joe Salva, he will be reaching out to you on that.
Yep, I can help with that. And sorry, Jason, I was trying to answer that question in the Q&A, and I accidentally moved it to answered, so my apologies.
So Jason, does that answer your question? I mean, your question was, does HYCU support worm functionality only on AWS S3, or do we support that on Nutanix objects? The answer is yes, we do support that on Nutanix objects.
So Ted, as follow-up, I'll get with you and get you some additional information around Nutanix Mind and HYCU and how that could work with your new Nutanix environment.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So any other questions, folks? All right, let me just do a quick time check. I think I can do a very short demonstration. All right, so just doing a quick video check. I hope you folks are able to see my screen. This is a web browser with a HYCU logo on it.
Yeah, sure, we can see it.
Cool, thanks. Thank you,
Yep.
Patrick. Thank you, Pat. All right, so this is our HYCU virtual machine. Now, I just wanted to showcase a top 7 items in this demo. Number 1, how easy it is to deploy. Number 2, how easy it is to, discover and configure. And 3, how easy it is to discover all of your applications. Number 4, the recovery options. Number 5, the backup target agnostic capabilities, and, the whole policy based backup solution. Number 6, I just wanted to showcase how the user management works. And last but not the least, give you a high level overview of how the overall monitoring works. So I won't be taking too long. To start with, our solution is an extremely easy to deploy because we are deployed as a virtual appliance, and we will be able to discover all of your sources from just this one virtual appliance, where we can discover your AHV environment, we can discover your ESX running on Nutanix, we can also discover ESX running on non-Nutanix environment. You can discover all of your Nutanix files and your physical machine speed with regards to Windows or Linux. And once this is done, we will be able to view all of your resources under the virtual machines, where you can actually see hundreds and hundreds of virtual machines discovered in my lab. But the best part here is the ability to discover all of the underlying applications as well. Now, in a normal sense, you would actually have to deploy an agent within these guest VMs to discover those applications. But with HYCU, all you have to do is specify the login credentials, and you can actually do a batch application where you can do one login credentials that can be applied to multiple VMs at the same time. And we will be able to automatically discover the appropriate applications. They could be Exchange or Oracle, or they could be SAP HANA, or they could be Active Directory. And based on these applications, we will be able to do application consistent backups based on the policy that you assign to the given application. So for instance, if you're using Microsoft SQL, we will be able to use the VDI-based backup methodology to create an application consistent backup of all of your MS SQL databases. Now, when it comes to restores, and this is where things get more interesting, because we not only have the ability to restore your entire server, but we can restore those individual databases to the exact point in time. And when it comes to, again, restoring, these individual databases can also be restored to an alternate server. And in addition to that, we also have the ability to do auto mounts, or using your Nutanix snapshots, where you can actually do live mounts. It's not auto mount, it's live mount. We can actually make use of your Nutanix snapshots to do live mounts onto your source VM and literally mount that database and restore those individual table spaces if you wanted to, right? Now, in addition to that, when it comes to recovery, we also have this ability to perform individual file or a folder level recovery. So when you choose that same Microsoft SQL VM, and let's say you don't want to restore those databases, but you just want to restore those individual files or folders, you can always switch the view to the virtual machine, and you actually have the ability to select those individual files and folders. And when it comes to those individual files and folders, you also have the ability to restore them to the same virtual machine, or you can restore it to an alternate virtual machine, like basically have a true file level mobility. And you also have the ability to restore those files to an individual SMB or an NFS share. And when it comes to restoring it to the original virtual machine, you actually can do it in the same or to an alternate location. And you also have this ability to renaming your existing or restored files. And especially when you're restoring them to the same VM, you also have the ability to restore the appropriate file permissions. Bunch of options here, folks. Again, you can restore an entire VM, or you can clone the virtual machine using snapshots, or you can migrate that VM from VMware to AHV. So again, I believe it was you, Ted. You mentioned that you have this like VMware cluster, and you're basically a new Nutanix customer. Are you going to be running VMware on Nutanix, or is it going to be AHV on Nutanix? Just a quick question.
AHV is the plan.
All right, perfect. So we basically have the ability to do cross hypervisor migration as well, using this clone VM functionality, where you can move your VMs from your VMware to your AHV. And we can also have the ability to not just modify, the hypervisor, but we also have the ability to modify the network settings, the ability to preserve the MAC addresses, the ability to modify your compute and your memory settings. This is a new feature that is coming up in 4.2. So please check us out. I'm sure you'll be interested with these capabilities. And in addition to that, we can also restore those individual vDisks, or you can also export that entire virtual machine into a raw disk. So again, options, tons of options. When it comes to Nutanix files, we actually have the ability to discover all of your NFS and SMB shares. And when it comes to restores, we can actually restore, again, individual files and folders. And you can restore these individual files and folders to the same share or to an alternate share. Again, you actually have a bunch of options here as well. Now, when it comes to backup targets, I'm sure you probably would have realized that by now. We are 100% backup target agnostic solution. We can do backups to all of your on-prem devices, such as NAS. For instance, if you have your existing Synology device, Ted, I mean, we actually have the ability to make use of that same NAS device to do backups. Or you can actually make use of Nutanix Mine, as we mentioned before, or you can actually make use of both of them. You can actually have Nutanix Mine as your primary target, and you can have Synology as your secondary target. I mean, why do you want to get rid of them? You already have them. You might as well make use of them. So you can actually make use of these Synology boxes as a secondary target. In addition to that, we also have the ability to do backups to the cloud. We can support AWS S3, Azure, and Blob storage. Now, when it comes to doing backups to the cloud, one of the cool things is we do have several options here. So if you're very specific about government specific cloud storage options, we can also support doing backups to AWS S3 government cloud or Azure government cloud. And the best part about doing backups to the cloud, especially when it comes to Azure and Google Cloud, is we are 100% transparent to their tiering. So you actually have the ability to move these backups to a specific tier based on the retention, and HYCU will be able to recover those backups from, let's say, a cold line or an archive tier back to your current tier, and we can actually recover, the required files or applications or the entire virtual machine. Last but not the least, with regards to the entire backup story, is the policies. Now, when it comes to policies, we are 100% policy-based data protection solution. So you basically define these policies once, and you just apply these policies to your VMs or your applications or your Nutanix files, and we will be able to protect them in a seamless fashion. Now, this is the place where you define all of your, RPO settings with regards to backup frequency or retention, or even RTO settings, which is a unique feature of its own, because we keep track of your backup throughput. And based on that, we will be able to assure if the RTO for that given backup can be achieved or not. And in addition to that, we can automatically select the backup target based on the SLA settings, or you can actually, manually specify the backup targets based on your discretion. Like if you wanted to enforce backups to a specific set of resources to a specific target, you could do that. Now, there are several options here. I already talked about the backup from replica, the robocopy, the fast restore, the ability to make use of snapshots for faster restores than your typical backups. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the auto assignment capability. So let's say if you wanted to automate the whole policy assignment, let's say you have tags assigned to these VMs, and let's say that you wanted to automatically protect a VM the moment it's discovered, you can actually make use of either a default policy or the tag assignment, where the policy assignment can be totally automated. So this is basically that set and forget model. Once you have these policies defined the right way the first time, you don't even have to log into our solution again, except for when you have to do restores. So we support that capability as well. Again, we support backup window capabilities. Like if you wanted to schedule your backups at a specific point, at a specific time, we could support that. Or if you wanted to run just full backups during the weekends, incrementals during the weekdays, like all those complex settings, we'll be able to address those as well. Last but not the least, we also support archive backups. These are full backups that can be stored for an extremely long periods of time. I'm talking about storing them for years. So we support archive backups in a weekly, monthly, or an yearly fashion, and they can be stored on your on-prem or on your cloud targets. So these are like the very high level capabilities. Now I just need like 5 more minutes, but before that, I just wanted to check if you have any questions. I know I've been doing a lot of talking here, so.
I've got one kind of quick question. I think
Please.
it's probably easy. So one of the problems we have today with Veeam is we have a couple of really large virtual machines.
Okay.
That's you know, they're Laserfish repository servers, and a couple of them have, you know, 50, 60 terabytes of storage stood up against them. And as you probably know, you know, when the way Veeam works, you know, it basically tries to take a VMware snapshot.
A VADP snapshot, yes.
And obviously, if you've got, you know, slower, we're not on an all-flash environment today, so it's a little bit slower than we're going to be, but it basically locks up the entire host when we
Yes,
try
it does.
to do that. So I was wondering, just if you could talk about just real quick how HYCU might kind of handle that problem a little bit better.
Yes. So once this virtual machine is moved to your AHV environment, we will be able to make use of your Nutanix snapshots. Now, there are two scenarios here. Now, you're making use of AHV. Let's say if you're just using the same VMware VM on your Nutanix platform, like let's say you're running VMware on Nutanix, or if you're running AHV, that same virtual machine will be protected in a very seamless fashion. You will not have any performance impacts on the source because we don't make use of VADP snapshots. We make use of the underlying Nutanix's storage level snapshots that ensures zero performance penalty, right? Your backups will take time. The first full backup is going to take some time because it's terabytes worth of data, but your subsequent incremental backups are going to be faster. But regardless of what it is, we won't be using the VADP snapshot, especially if you're running on Nutanix. So does that answer your question, Ted?
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. Now, the last two things that I want to talk about is the self-service. Now, with regards to self-service, there are two things that I want to cover. One is the whole RBAC functionality, and the second one is the multi-tenancy. So with HYCU, you can actually have all of your Active Directory users or your local users. You can create new users if you wanted to. You can simply go to the Active Directory setting under settings, and you should be able to add your new Active Directory or your LDAP setting. And once you are done, you can actually go ahead and add all of these users, and based on the roles, you can actually assign administrator or restore operator or backup operator or a user with just read-write privileges, with only read-only privileges. And based on those rights, you can actually assign them the resources. Now, for instance, once you create a logical group of users within HYCU, you can actually specify what resources does that particular group have access to. For instance, if I'm a user, let me just take this filter off. Now, this is an administrator view, like I basically have access to the entire environment. But if a user from, let's say, a DevOps group logs into HYCU, then he or she will only be able to view a subset of resources. And based on the role-based access control that you've assigned, we'll only be able to perform the defined actions, like just backups or just restores. And this view is filtered for applications. This view is filtered for virtual machines. This view is also filtered for Nutanix file shares. So you may have, like, let's say an H&R or a finance department with access to their own shares, and they can actually do their own restores if they wanted to. So you actually have the ability to set this whole, sandbox style environment within a shared infrastructure, and it's totally secured, because when you create a new group within HYCU, it's basically doing, it automatically creates its own, a separate database for that group, and all that metadata is preserved within that siloed database. So the entire access to that metadata is preserved. So that is the huge advantage here. I mean, the multi-tenancy within HYCU is truly secure. The last part that I wanted to talk about was the reporting. Now, with regards to, or the overall backup monitoring. Now, to start with, I just wanted to talk about backup reports. Now, when it comes to backup reports, we actually have a dedicated backup infrastructure built in, and all of this, backup reporting is basically inclusive of your base license. Now, we are not going to charge you anything extra, or we are not going to ask you to deploy a separate server. And again, Ted, I don't know if you noticed this, but especially when you're using Veeam, that backup reporting functionality that's available for a VMware, it won't be available for AHV. I've seen other customers, go through the painful, view of just going through the alerts to generate a report. But anyways, so with HYCU, you won't have that issue. This is basically an example of a backup status. Not this one, I'm sorry. The VM backup status. Yeah. So this is basically an example of a VM backup status report that actually gives you the details of all of the VMs that have been backed up for the last 24 hours. What kind of a backup is it? Is it a full or an incremental backup? What's the backup duration, the start time and the end time, the amount of data that was transferred? What's the, the backup target information? All that can be basically combined into one report that can be exported into a PDF, PNG, or a CSV format. And it can also be emailed to the appropriate recipient. I mean, you can schedule these reports on a periodic basis, and you can actually specify an email recipient. And all of these functionality is basically available within the base license. In addition to that, we also keep track of all of the events, not with regards to just backups and restores, but also all of those internal operations. And you can actually generate email-based notification for all of these events or for a subset of events. Like most of the times, our customers are just focused on backup and restore failures. So you can simply filter the appropriate set of events, and you will be only alerted. Yeah, so this particular example showcases that email-based notifications will be created only for backup and restore failures and warnings. So you could do that. And we also have the jobs. So basically, we keep track of all of your backup jobs, and we also have the ability to take a look into the job logs. Like you don't have to get into the virtual machine and parse through the log files. I mean, you can actually take a look at the backup job, and you can actually take a look at the log for that given backup job that actually showcases what are the databases that are being backed up. Is that snapshot an application consistent or a crash consistent copy? Like what is the throughput? What is the ETA for that backup? All of those details can be can be showcased here, and you can simply this can be used for troubleshooting purposes as well. So yeah, that is a very high level demo. I just want to do a quick time check. Yeah, it's almost to the hour. Any last questions or comments before I complete the session? All right. So to summarize, we are really truly a perfect solution for your Nutanix-led data center, because we can actually integrate with all of your Nutanix components, be it AHV or ESX or volume groups or Nutanix files, or even making use of your Nutanix's protection domains, near sync, Nutanix Mine, or Nutanix Mine with objects, Nutanix clusters running on AWS and Azure, and Nutanix COM-based deployments. Like we have an overall breadth of coverage when it comes to Nutanix platform, and our roadmap is laser focused with Nutanix's roadmap, and our customer support is totally has an amazing working relationship with Nutanix's customer support. And especially when we have helped a lot of customers, especially when they have had any potential platform related bugs or bugs with with regards to the HYCU platform, we actually have worked with Nutanix. And they have worked with us, and we have actually helped solve numerous problems or several problems in a very timely manner. And that is the true advantage of having us as your primary backup vendor. So to summarize, we have the ability to do backups to any backup target, be it your on-prem or to your cloud backup target. We can support Azure, Amazon, or Google when it comes to your cloud backup targets. And when it comes to sources, we actually can support Nutanix AHV or ESX running on Nutanix, or even ESX running on non-Nutanix platform and physical machines. Any last questions,
Thanks,
thoughts,
Shiva.
comments? All right.
I was just saying, thanks for running through that.
Yeah, good job,
Yes,
Shiva. Thank you.
good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you, Sheila.
Do we, any last minute questions from anybody?
Oh, looks good. Thank you.
All right, for those of you that joined, so this is Les. I'll be reaching out to each of you just as a follow-up. And if you wanted additional information on anything that Shiva went through today, or you'd like to do kind of a deeper dive and talk specifics for your organization, we'll absolutely be happy to set that up. So I'll be reaching out here before the end of the week just to see if you had any questions, and if not, then we'll be talking with you soon. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. Really appreciate you investing the time to learn about our new partnership with HYCU here at 5S. Everyone.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Les.
Thanks for everybody
Thanks, everybody.
attending. Happy holidays all.
Thank you.